Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. All right. Judgment. Judgment. We're talking about judgment this morning. Judgment. So I'm Cynthia Harrison from the Academy of Conscious Evolution. Some may know me from Rhombus Healing Arts or the House of Unconditional Love. And I'm here today as your mystic medicine woman. We are going to look at a little practice around judgment. Oops, where did I go? There you go. All right. So, who's here with me? Who's here? We are getting started. Judgment. So, this contemplation comes from the Ascend 42 Journeys journal. And some of you have been journeying with us as I've been giving you little snippets of this particular process. And just while we wait for a few more people to come on, we are starting the complete 10x 10-month Ascend program in June. So wherever you're watching this from, you can go to that link and find out more. But it's over 10 months because it's incremental and each process builds on the other. So we're looking at not only conscious evolution, spiritual development, we have to start with where we are, which is in our vessel, in our body, and all the, I guess, the experiences we've had in our body, right? So if you've been, I've posted a bunch of stuff on both the Instagrams. So one's Unconditional Love and one is Cynthia Jane Harrison. So they're the two main Instagrams. But I've been bringing in more around attachment styles and, saying paint, learn while I paint. So, I'm painting, but there's little teachings around. I guess I've been starting with some of the most difficult personality disorders or attachment or protective or defensive mechanisms or behaviors, right? My journey, just to give you a little tap dance here while we're still waiting before we get into it. My journey, from very young, I asked why people do what they do, because I looked around the world, I looked around the environment that I was brought up in, not necessarily my parents, although our primary caregivers are primary in our attachment, our bonding, how we attune, right? If we do, if we don't, and how that actually structures the brain, our brain development. For over 20 years ago, I was teaching how trauma impacts the brain for children. So that's my background, is in complex trauma, therapeutic specialist for children, but also adults. But I worked a lot with children that were in homes out of home care or institutions, and they just had behaviors that were seem dangerous to a lot of people. So there's not much that I haven't seen and haven't experienced directly. And I'm starting to share some little bits and pieces. Right now, how does today's releasing judgment or contemplating judgment link into that? Well, as I was just contemplating the actual process or practice that I'm going to share with you today, which is very short because I have to get over to our inner circle shortly. And you can join that. That's where we go deeper into the teachings and processes and Q&As and coaching and whatnot. But judgment of ourselves or our experiences, right? Why, why I'm bringing this to you as like, okay, the process is to observe, right? To observe and see where the judgment comes. So maybe I'll just take you into that and then I'll give you my critical reflection on that, because critical reflection isn't being critical, it's looking at something from many perspectives rather than just where your belief and conditioning came from, because that generally is how you were brought up and the impact of your primary caregivers. Okay. So judging of ourselves and our experiences, right? And we could say this is one of the strongest barriers to our intuitive flow. And it is on some level, right? The evaluating mind interrupts the receptive state for intuition, for that deeper, higher, more expansive, however you want to look at it, what direction, right? So we're learning to adopt a stance of curious observation. It's always like, be curious, experiment, not being so hard on, well, this is the information coming in, so that must be true, because often it isn't. Rather than the immediate assessment of something or someone, right? How can we open channels for deeper knowledge, knowing to emerge? So I was contemplating, my background's also anthropology. I studied anthropology in my mid-20s, which is the study of the human, right? So for, God knows now, over 30 years, I have been professionally and through my own direct experience being curious about the human condition on all levels, right? Physiologically, energetically, spiritually, soul to spirit. So we have this is the practice. This is the practice. And then we can have a discussion about it. How about that? So you can do this for about 15 minutes, but we're just going to touch into it. And then if you would like to do that process longer, you could do that and maybe journal about it or send me a message, let me know how you went. But choose a small object. It could be anything. I'm looking at what I've got here. I've always got lip balm. Nearly run out this one. But lip balm, a pen, my drink, or a stone, a flower, a hair clip, whatever you have in front of you, a notepad, right? Whatever it is. A piece of fruit. I've been doing these meditations on mango because the mango tree is abundant at the moment, right? So choosing a small object. Have you got your small object? Whatever's around. Or it could be your shoe. I'm looking at my shoe on the floor. This little packet that has some awesome little gadgets in it for my invention that I haven't shared with anyone yet. But, right, whatever it is, grab it. We're going to go through this little process, and then if we have time, I'll give you some reflective prompts, and we might be able to get a little bit of the critical reflection in there. So exploring. So if I'm using this lip balm, or, right, exploring it with all of your senses. So this is really 101 mindfulness, but bear with me, because after we've done this, we're going to reflect. So with all your senses, sort of feeling it, I'm looking at it. Does it make a noise? Does it smell? It actually does smell. It smells like, what's it smell like? Fruit, blackberries or something. It is, there you go, blackberry. Oh no, acacia berry. I don't know, it's old, so it's, right? So looking at it, the words are fading because it's nearly at its end. My favorite lip gloss. Not being paid, not branded. But hey, if you're watching, no, I'm joking. All right, so you've got your object. What's it taste like? Well, this is, if it's a shoe, don't put it in your mouth, but because it doesn't really have a taste. But what's the texture? This one, it's a little sticky. I'm not into sticky lip glosses, but it's not as sticky as most, right? Just using all of your senses as if you've never encountered such an object before. If I showed you this, would you know what it was? So looking at your object, and each time you notice a judgment or a categorization arising, gently observe, notice, and return to just purely observing. So just take a few moments to do that. And as I said, you can spend more time doing that and practicing that. Let me just see the chat. Right? And I always give you reflection and integration, because I'm a researcher as well as a mystic. I just finished a major research on the healing properties or the healing aspects of mystical experiences. The reflection and the integration is crucial for that process to happen. So from our little mindfulness observation, your reflection prompts, if you choose, so you can either write them down now or go back to the replay and check this out. What was challenging about suspending the categorization or the judgment? What was challenging about it? Did you even notice that there was a challenge? Or there was no challenge? How do you know there was no challenge, right? So number one, what was challenging, if anything at all, right? What did you notice that you may or might have generally or typically overlooked? What did you notice that you typically overlook about your object that you're observing? It's intimacy, really. Becoming intimate with, you're really spending time with something without judging it, without categorizing it. How does judgment affect your relationship with your intuitive impressions? How have you experienced that? If you go back and do this again, maybe for 10 or 15 minutes, and just really spend some time with an object. When I worked for an organization, a nonprofit, part of my job was the personal or professional development of the social workers and psychologists and whatnot. And we would do things like this, but often I would bring edible objects like marshmallows or raisins or chocolate, And so that might be something you might like to try, putting a tiny piece of chocolate just on your tongue and noticing, like really being with that piece of chocolate and just finding out more about it without categorizing it as nice, tasty, luscious, love, hate, whatever, right? You're just with it. The same with a raisin or a pea or a piece of whatever you're using. Okay. Or when you sip your first sip, I don't drink coffee anymore, but I can remember first sip of coffee in the morning, or my first sip of, green tea, matcha, and my chocolate protein powder latte. But what makes it, right? I'm categorizing it as what makes something, wantable. We're making meaning here, people. All right. I make up words all the time. Something that you want to come closer to or something you want to push away from. Okay. So they're your reflective questions or prompts, and any other curiosities. But the integration note for today is to choose one routine activity, right? Something that is routine in your day, and perform it or do it with the same quality of non-judgmental awareness. I'm going to say without categorizing. And notice how this changes your experiences. So I did this quite a bit yesterday because I was in a silent retreat, and I technically still should be in my silent retreat. But I thought, oh, well, do I just come on here and sit in silence? Well, maybe we will in our inner circle. However, yesterday, just being with picking the fruit off the mangoes off the mango tree and the sun coming through the leaves, right? The birds chirping, what's on the ground, like smelling, looking, feeling, sensing, knowing, right? And then taking those and then making my breakfast and how I did that. So I pulled little pieces of that, and there are some reels on Instagram. But offering you the opportunity to notice how this changes your life. Now, this may sound 101. It is. But if you're not practicing and working towards your intimacy in life, with life, right? With the life force, then everything else extrapolated from that has no thingness within it. And that's okay if you want to be in God consciousness. You know, I go there regularly, but it's a whiteout. There's no thing there, no thingness. All and everything and no thing. That's another class, right? So going on, I've got a few more minutes before. So let me know in the chat if you did that, or if you have questions or contemplations or experiences around what we're talking about. But I started to think about, because this is how I became. I don't think I was born like this, but I'm a questioner. I'm curious and I experiment from the day that I can remember, which is pretty young. Always asking and trying to find out about things. As I grew up, a lot of that came from trauma or feeling unsafe, right? Which leads to our attachment styles and our adaptive strategies, how we protect ourselves, right? As we move through the world. And as we do that, this changes how we see the world and how we experience the world and others in it. So, you know, it all goes back to, I've been sharing about lots of different attachment styles, and people talking about different things. And I can pull that all apart and put it back together again. And sometimes I will, like today, talking about judgment. I'm like, judgment. What does the word judgment even mean? Judgment and the noun, decide. A decision or an option about someone or something that you form, thinking carefully. Okay. And where does that information come from for you? All of my clients and students, I'm saying, how do you know this? Where does that belief come from? How we move through the world, how we are in the world, doing, being, aring, do you reflect in the same way that we just did that little mindfulness reflection to be intimate with something, right? And really explore it, feel it, get to know it in its own, I don't know, words. It's like meaning making. Who makes up these words? This has always baffled me. All through my life, I drove my parents mad, I'm sure. Why is something called what it is? Is it from its function, its form? Is it from, losing its essence down the history? Right? So we've got judgment, the word judgment. What does judgment mean to you? Does it come with, I'm saying, are you judging something? Do you think or believe that judgment means it's going to be something bad? What makes something bad? What makes something that you don't want? How do you know that? Where have you learned that? So those of you on a mystic path, so not just a spiritual path, and there's a few of you, the mystically inclined. This is the sort of work that we are, right? We're not doing, we are. I posted something yesterday. It was actually a professor who is a narcissist. He has been diagnosed twice, and he proclaims that in the interview. And he says that he talks about cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance is where your brain finds it difficult to hold two different states at the same time. So a yes and no at the same time. So I love my partner and I hate my partner at the same time. Right? And so on the level that he's speaking, on that psychological level, but on a spiritual level, we're going through those 3 levels of spiritual development where on that base level, you have love. When you're in love, you can't see that there's fear. And when you're in fear, you've got no comprehension that love is an opportunity, right? 2 completely separate level 1, stage 1. Stage 2 is where you're in love, but you have an awareness that there's fear, right? And maybe you're even in love and you go into fear anticipating that you're going to go into, whatever that is, that anxiety. Or you're in fear, but you know that there's love. You can still see love in the world, right? You're in your curled up fetal position in pain, emotional pain, yet you know love exists. Make sense? Okay. 3rd level is where what I call the mystics live in that paradox of not being in one or the other, which is the unconditional love. Because the love and fear exists within all. So it's about being able to be with something and seeing the love and the fear, right? All of it. The unconditional love in everything, everyone. So even in that, when I post something, knowing that what that person has said or what even I have said in one aspect has multiple dimensions to it, and we could look at it in any other aspect. Does it make sense? Or in a way? All right, so I do have to go to our inner circle. But this leads to that discernment, right? What's discernment? Judgment, discernment. We use it a lot in spiritual development, being able to discern, right? The ability to be able to distinguish between things. Right? In a way, that's still judgment, because we have to take the judgment off the word judgment. Right? Get where I'm going? You're walking with me? All right, so making distinctions. So we can feel something, and I'll end on this. We can feel something in relationships with ourselves or with the other, and it feel uncomfortable, right? If we've been taught to fear fear, to get out of discomfort, we can miss our growth opportunities. We know birthing hurts. It's uncomfortable. Even if you take all the drugs, you'll still feel it afterwards when the drugs wear off. Right? The body remembers. So when you're birthing a relationship, a dream, a vision, and we feel in our body, in our system, a sensation. If we don't, we just accept it. It's not, is it good, is it bad, right? We're just being with that in the body and getting to know it the same way we did with our little object. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. I have to go over to our inner circle. We're going to go deeper and also do some processes. But if you would like to join our inner circle, there is a link there. It's every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time. I'm not sure what that is for you. Where we can discuss. It's through Zoom. We can discuss, and I can guide you deeper and answer your questions, but we also do much more. It's also the Ascend, the complete 10x Ascend, which is awakening spiritual consciousness and embodied neural development. So it's looking at the physical aspects of being here, embodied, nervous system, attachment styles, our trauma and whatnot, shadow, whatever you want to call that, and working on what is holding you back through the direct experiences, right? Not just talky talk. I can talk forever, but a mystic will give you direct experiences. We're looking at the energetics, not just the general, right? A lot of stuff that majority of humans don't even know about. But it's systematically building your structures so that you can, you're able to be the vessel for the higher teachings, right? Because with spiritual development or your conscious evolution, as you develop, right, your system is taking on more information. And if you have some fears there still from the past, they'll come up and say, hey, we can't go any further until we've looked at this. So wherever you're at, you're most welcome. The link is in the either in my bio, my profile, or under the post, wherever you're watching it from. If you've got questions, just send me a message. Happy to have a chat with you. And starts in June. So that's pretty soon. So have a look. What else have we got? There's no Sunday service this week. I believe it's the last Sunday of the month. And but those of you in Inner Circle, I'm coming over now. So much love. Thanks for coming and having a little chat. And if you're watching the replay, let me know how you went. And until we meet again, may the blessings be. Go over and look at the Instagram. I put a few up yesterday, and much love. So if you're in the inner circle, jump over to the Zoom link, the inner circle Zoom link, and I shall be there in 2 shakes of the dog's tail.